Welcome to Films Apart, the podcast where we poke fun at buried flops, unearth hidden gems, and explore timeless classics.
So grab yourself some popcorn, sit back, and let's break these films apart.
On today's episode of Film Apart, we are looking at Black Christmas, the 1974 slasher movie.
A film that's very similar to it,
Yes.
the musical Meet Me in St. Louis. Two Christmas classics for this episode on Christmas Day.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas, Kyle.
Merry Christmas, Lewis. So, very different films, but we wanted to do something that sort of shows our taste in films, I guess.
That shows who we are as people a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I have a love for slashers.
Musicals.
Yeah. I love musicals and chose Black Christmas.
And I love slasher films and chose Meet Me in St. Louis.
Yeah.
I was bitterly disappointed.
There wasn't one death in it. The little girl nearly died.
That's true.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
So, yeah, I've chose Black Christmas, which I would argue was actually the first slasher movie because it released in Canada the same day that A Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that's often noted as the first major slasher movie, did in America. Apart from it didn't get banned. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think, was banned for 2 years in America.
So that was released before, that was made before.
So Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they were both released on the 11th of October, 1974. After release, A Texas Chainsaw Massacre was banned, and then it was re-released, and that's why it got such a big name for itself, because it was banned for its gore. But this isn't that.
No, that's the one for another day.
Yeah, I think this does the slasher genre a lot more justice and sets it up at a better angle that's maybe a bit more feminist than slasher films normally accredited as being.
Okay, it's an interesting take. Why don't you give us a bit of a synopsis?
So, it's based on the urban legend of the babysitter and the man upstairs. Have you heard this legend?
No.
No? Okay. I'll tell you how I heard it. I think it's probably it's a very Western legend. It's obviously known in Canada and it's known in the UK. My auntie told it to me when I was young. There's a babysitter caring for some children in a house. And she keeps hearing banging coming from upstairs. So she goes up, checks on the children, and there's this oddly man-sized clown doll sat in a chair in the corner. So she goes downstairs and she starts getting strange phone calls. And when she answers them, a strange person making noises down a phone, making threats. She ignores them, gets more, calls the police. The police track the number. Turns out the call's coming from inside, and it's the clown upstairs. And she's told to get out with the children. There's various different takes in it where she goes upstairs, the children are dead, she gets the children out, or she leaves the children behind.
Okay, so you were very young when you were told this.
Yeah, I was. I was maybe 6, 7. Probably older than that, 8 or 9.
And did you sleep that night?
No. No. I was a very scared child.
So that kind of gives us the synopsis of Black Christmas in a way. And we know that from quite early on, don't we? We know that there's a man that gets in the house. We see that. Mm-hmm. So it's not so much a spoiler. Yeah,
we'd all try avoid spoilers for this first section. It does the iconic point of view slasher shot 4 years before Halloween did it.
Do you know what I found quite interesting about this film was that it didn't feel American, which sounds stupid because it's Canadian, obviously, but obviously Canadian often does feel American. Yeah. It actually felt, in a tone sense, more English or British to me, straddling the gap between Hammer horrors. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to make it out to be this kind of campy thing because it isn't, but Hammer horrors and then the more real.
It's quite kitchen sink in a way with how sort of gritty it is.
Yeah,
it's got a lot of social commentary going on.
That's what I mean. It's not. Yeah. It isn't like a Hammer horror in that sense. It's not kind of fantastical. It feels kind of there's a gritty realism to it. Mm-hmm. But there's a bit of a campy humour at times as well. In it.
I'd say so. Yeah, it has moments of sort of silly humour.
And it's a wonderful film to watch at Christmas.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
If you have family, young children, gather around the Christmas tree, the fire, put this film on.
And ruin Christmas like Kyle had it done for him many years ago.
Yes.
Was it at Christmas that your auntie told you?
Oh, I can't remember. I just remember it sticking with me.
Yeah.
But this film, it's not about a babysitter like Halloween is or many other slashers. It's about a sorority of women who are celebrating for Christmas. They're all getting ready to go back home for the Christmas holiday, and they're getting these repetitive calls from someone that they call the Mona.
That's one of the things that I thought was very good about it. Was I like horror films that are real, that feel like that. When I say real, I mean they feel like they could happen. And at that time in America and in the UK, there was this whole thing with serial killers, and which was all related to sex in some way, wasn't it? And these phone calls,
they're very sexual. Like it's a sexual deviant on the phone, basically. The women are all quite openly sexual and
deviant.
Not ashamed. Yeah, the women are all deviant as well. They're willing to talk about like
deviants,
sex before marriage.
I'm going to deviate from the deviants.
Yeah, they talk about sex before marriage. Margot. I know. After watching St. Louis, that's a big deal because they make quite a fuss about kissing before marriage in that, let alone sex.
That's a good point, yeah.
Margot Kidder is in this.
Who's brilliant.
She's a joy as an alcoholic potty mouth.
I couldn't help but think about the way her life turned out.
Yeah.
Because it was quite a tragic life, wasn't
Yeah.
it? She had this bipolar. I wondered whether that kind of bipolar aspect of her gave her that edge.
Yeah.
Because she just is, she has got something about her, hasn't she?
But she's completely lovable. She's a joy to watch on screen. I think all of the scenes she's in, she steals.
Yeah.
But yeah, then you have the maid there's a lot of alcoholics in this film.
Is she a maid or does she own the house? I thought she owned the house and was...
Maybe she is the landlady.
The landlady, yeah.
Yeah, lives there, hides booze in like bucks.
Yeah.
And then all the men in the film are a bit more prudish. The father of one of the girls. How do we go about this?
I mean, obviously, stuff happens. It's a slasher film. Family members come in, and one of those is a father, and he is very...
Proper, religious.
Emotional.
Yeah.
The boyfriend at the beginning of is really difficult, isn't it?
Right. So not going into too much detail, the story kicks off when one of the sorority members is murdered, and they'll presume she's missing. And her father shows up looking for who she's meant to have met. Her boyfriend, obviously, is presumed a suspect in a way.
Yeah, that's a big part of the film, actually. This girl who gets killed at the beginning, and then the search party for her. It wasn't as slasher as I kind of thought it might be, because I've heard about the film. The film's a classic. People have talked about it for years. I keep meaning to watch it, but just never got around to it. One of the things that was good about it was that it didn't overdo it.
Yeah, it's not like it's going in for as many kills as it can. And I think when it does do a kill, it's done quite artistically. So it's a sort of political slasher, touches on abortion quite a bit. That's quite a major player in the film.
Yeah.
Our main character is pregnant and wants to get an abortion, and that's a cause of arguments between her and her boyfriend.
Yeah. Turtle sex.
Yeah, gratuitous turtle sex.
What?
That goes on for 3 days.
I only said that because I looked down at my notes and I saw turtle sex. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, Margot Kidder goes on a sort of rant after the father, who's very anti-swearing. He's a prude. He doesn't want anything improper said. He's here with the landlady, worrying about obviously his daughter. She's not been seen, and Margot Kidder's character comes down drunk as a skunk and starts telling him some facts about turtles. Did you know there's a species of turtle that has sex for 3 days?
Yeah, that's it.
And she goes into graphic detail of how she saw this at a zoo.
She went to the zoo to watch it.
Yeah, and she said, it's lucky, really, because normally I don't get more than 10 minutes, and the father seems horrified.
She didn't say 10 minutes. She said 3 minutes.
3?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I remembered that bit.
Yeah, that stuck with you. Because your wife said during the film who
my
was
wife
watching
was
it with you.
My wife was next to me.
I wish.
Yeah. I said 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
That's a good shift.
She didn't say 10 minutes. She said 3 minutes.
That's it. 3 minutes is a good shift. I think we're getting off track here anyway.
Well, this always happens, we get off track on some sort of random bestial topic. I thought the music was very good. It was very atmospheric from the start. Right from the start, it was very atmospheric. The lighting was quite low. Straight away, you're into this creepy film, obviously with the point of view camera, following the murderer around. You assume he's a murderer. I think the thing that put me off Black Christmas, I find this with films, is that posters and titles are so important, aren't they? And I think with this one, Black Christmas, it had been revered as this cultish film from the 70s for starters. And in my head, I'd got it that it was like The Wicker Man. And, and you know, The Wicker Man's a good film, but at the same time, you have to be in a certain mood, don't you? And so I didn't watch Black Christmas for a long time because I just never happened to be in the right mood. And actually, it's a slasher film, isn't it? It's a film you can watch in a much more relaxed mood.
Yeah, I'd say so. To get you in the Christmas spirit.
Yeah. And talking of Christmas spirit, should we jump over to Meet Me in St. Louis and then we'll come back to Black Christmas, yeah? So, Meet Me in St. Louis, set around the massacre of the St. Louis World Fair.
I watched the wrong film.
Did you not watch that one?
No.
Which one did you? You didn't watch the Judy Garland musical?
Yeah, I watched the shitty musical.
Oh, no, that's not the Meet Me in St. Louis I was on about. It was the one with the gangsters. No, so Meet Me in St. Louis is a musical made in 1944. It's based around the story of a family leading up to the St. Louis World Fair in 1904, which everybody's really, really excited about. In fact, that's how the film starts. One of the daughters comes on singing "Meet Me in St. Louis, Louis."
Go on, do the whole song.
Me at the fair.
Then the granddad joins in.
And actually, you said that Black Christmas was the first slasher film. In the DVD I've got of Meet Me in St. Louis, Liza Minnelli introduces it by saying that Meet Me in St. Louis was the first musical.
Of its kind.
Of its kind, yeah. Because obviously there was lots of musicals before that.
Yeah.
But I think she meant that where people were singing as if it was just real life, you know, this daughter coming on singing Meet Me in St. Louis, that's just the way she is. She's just very happy.
Yeah.
Granddad's very happy.
Yeah.
And obviously the songs that happen a little bit later on when they're at the party, they're like performance pieces to each other, aren't they? Rather than just songs that come out of the air about feelings.
I think before this, it was more musicals where it was like the characters' internal monologues expressing themselves, whereas this is they're singing to each other. Everyone's aware of what's going on.
Yeah. And I think she has a valid argument with that, but I will say that I'm not fully behind it because have yourself a merry little Christmas is not, that's not, you know, she's not just suddenly gone to the window and just, like you do.
Yeah, started singing.
Have yourself. She does sing it
She sings it to her sister.
She sings it to her sister.
Fair.
So,
give it credit.
You know, I mean, Liza Minnelli has got a point.
Yeah.
It's obviously known as a classic. It's a very popular Christmas film, or it certainly has been over the years. I don't know whether it's would be so popular now, maybe with people of a certain generation.
Maybe fans of musicals.
Directed by Vincent Minnelli, who met Judy Garland. This is why Liza Minnelli introduced it, because he met Judy Garland on the film set, and they got married, and Liza Minnelli was born.
She was made.
Yeah, she was made by Meet Me in St. Louis. So whereas Black Christmas is seeing everyone off, Meet Me in St. Louis is bringing people to life.
I think something to state about both of these films is they're not necessarily Christmas films. They're films set at Christmas, I think.
Yeah.
It's a sort of backdrop for the movie.
Yeah, it's not Home Alone. It's not Gremlins. No. Well, no, Gremlins, I suppose, is a bit...
I think that's similar. It's sort of backdrop of Christmas,
But yeah, it's not Arthur Christmas or...
No.
It's a good film.
Do I watch that one?
Next Christmas.
Yeah.
I've watched this film before. I've seen it a few times, probably 3 times. It's not my favourite musical, but I do like musicals, and this is why I chose it. I thought because it's Christmas themed and it's a musical. I did find watching it again that it did feel slow. Yeah,
so this was my first time watching it. I felt that it dragged at points. I liked the musical elements, but the parts that it wasn't, it sort of lost me, I think, at certain parts.
Yeah. I tell you what it made me think. It's a chick flick.
Yeah.
It's a chick flick.
Yeah,
it's like the original. It's the original chick flick. If you are
swooning over sort of the man next door.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I thought about my wife. She's got two sisters, so three of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, it's about sisters.
Yeah, it is.
It's
Very
like
much
Little
about
Women,
sisterhood.
but slightly less dark.
Yeah, bit more singing.
Bit more singing. Yeah, it's like a musical Little Women. So because of that, it didn't grab me in all the ways. I wasn't really that invested in whether Judy Garland got off with the neighbour, or you know, or they married
proposed.
off, or they married off Rose,
That old hag,
the poor old maid, as
yeah.
they described this 20-year-old woman. The things that I thought were good about it were the music. Margaret O'Brien, she's the little tootie that's like
The youngest sister.
slightly macabre.
Yeah,
Killing her dolls, burying them in the garden and stuff.
yeah. I've put a note saying them girls are evil.
Yeah.
One poignant scene of the film, these girls, they're burning sort of furniture and books to make a bonfire. And the youngest, what is it, Tootie?
Tootie.
She wants to prove herself as the meanest of the lot. So she goes to a neighbour's house, knocks on the door, chucks flour in his face, buggers off.
Yeah.
And then it cuts and she's got this sort of eye injury, like she's been battered, maybe ran down, they're not too sure. And they eventually get the truth out of her because if it turns out the neighbours gave her a sort of scene to, and the US...
What?
Does that not mean beat up? Does that not mean beat up? Oh no! Go back, edit it out, edit that bit out.
No. That's kind of not what I meant, but I do. But yes, as well.
The neighbour, as presumably, looks like he's beating her up, and then Judy Garland's character.
She accuses the next door neighbour lad, who
Yeah.
Judy Garland's in love with,
Yeah,
of giving her a battering.
and it turns out he sort of did, but she was wrapping clothes up and putting them on a tram track so people thought they'd run an old lady down.
Yeah.
And they were hoping it derailed. So she was a bit of a shitbag, but I thought she was a joy.
She was a really good character.
And another good character, I think, was the granddad with all his silly hats
yeah.
at the start. I thought I really liked him.
The oldest and the youngest
Yeah.
were the highlights of the film. Actually, Margaret O'Brien won an Oscar. The little
Really?
Tootie. She won a juvenile Oscar as they were back then.
Is that a thing now?
No.
Oh.
You just Oscars now.
No, you don't see a kid get an Oscar, do you?
Well, you might see a kid get an Oscar, but it would just be like a best supporting actor.
They don't stand a chance. I'll be honest.
Well, I don't know. I'm trying to think. There's going to be examples, but you know.
The Home Alone remake, he could have won one.
Bone Alone.
Bone Alone.
The first dog to win an Oscar.
Dog to win an Oscar. Oh.
But like you say, like I said, it drags at times. It feels slow. It's this to-ing and throwing of these relationship stuff. And if you like that sort of thing, great. It's wholesome. This wholesome American middle-class family. Liza Minnelli described it as it's like an average family. And I thought that's not an average family. Mm-hmm. That wasn't an average family in 1944, not too many years after the Great Depression and during the war.
Well, I thought what was amazing, you've not mentioned yet, I don't think, but this family, the father announces that they need to move to New York.
Oh, I haven't. Yeah, I've got completely sidetracked. Yeah, we haven't talked about the synopsis at all, really. Go.
So the father announces to the family, who are all sort of settled down in St. Louis, it's this beautiful little town, that they're moving to New York, and they have this whole faff about, where'd I leave our friends? We have love interests here.
I mean, it's more than a faff. I mean, they are destroyed.
They're destroyed.
And even more so because the World's Fair's about to happen, and they're going to miss the World's Fair. Everybody's singing about, meet me
at St. Louis. They're not going to meet anyone there. They're not going to it.
No, they're going to be in New York.
Yeah, meet me in New York.
Bereft of World Fairs and friends.
Yeah. And there's an interesting point where the daughters say, how will we live in New York, Father? We're not rich. We're not rich. We'll have to live in an apartment block together. They live in a mansion. They have a maid.
Yeah. So anyway, so all this drama goes off about them wanting to not leave. Partly because Judy Garland's in love with this boy and the other one's in love with another boy, and all of this stuff's not going to happen because of leaving St. Louis. And then that's what the film's about.
Yeah.
But it's quite lightweight, isn't it, in that sense? In a story sense, it's a romantic film about...
Yeah, it's about these sisters that both have love interests that they want to ask to marry them, basically. And one of the men, Warren, who's the older sister's love interest, is a bit useless. He can't really bring it up. there's a very funny scene at the end of the film where he just sort of, it's quite a poignant point of the film, the big climax, and he sort of bursts in the front door and says, I can't take it anymore. You're going to marry me. He's not asked her yet. He says, you're going to marry me, and Merry Christmas, and then leaves. I that gave me quite a chuckle. So anyway, these two sisters have love interests.
Yeah.
And that's basically the plot of the film. They want to get married, but their dad's making them move away. And then by the end of the film, the dad decides, look, we're not moving to New York.
It's a happy ending. The dad comes in and gets very angry at them and says, we are going to, no, we're going to stay. I'm fed up of listening to you, like it's his idea, I guess. The moral being that if you tell everybody that you're going to do something really shit, like make a move, and then when they get used to the idea, change your mind, you become a hero.
Yeah. So lie. Lie to your family, make them distraught, and then go back on it.
Make them distraught, make them believe something
on
really
Christmas,
bad.
On Christmas. Tear them apart, ruin their Christmas.
And then say it was just a joke.
And you don't have to get them a present because they're all happy enough with that on Christmas.
They're just happy that you haven't
tore their lives apart,
killed the neighbour, or whatever lie you choose.
Yeah.
I accidentally killed the cat. I ran over the cat.
Yeah. Well, there's that scene about the cat, the little girl, sort of, her introduction is she enters and there's this maid who's preparing dinner, and she enters and goes like, where's, whatever the cat's name is, Molly. She's like, where's Molly? Where's Molly? And the maid says that she's killed it or something.
Oh, yeah.
And the girl gets quite violent and says, like, if you've killed it, I'll tear your skin off from the skin or something.
I'll rip your head off and shit down your neck. She says. No, but she does say something quite horrific. She says something
quite vile for like a family Christmas film of a musical of this generation. And then the maid just goes, the cat's over there.
What I really liked about that was that she literally did say, if you've done that, I am going to,
skin you
rip
alive.
you apart and kill you.
Yeah.
But the maid's just like completely
it's
oblivious
normal.
to it. It's like it's absolutely normal. Oh, kids will
Stop
be kids.
messing around.
With your little murderous thoughts.
Yeah, she definitely grew up to be like a Mona.
Yeah. So actually, they're quite similar films in some respects. They've got
this
that
is
dark.
The origin story of the murderer in Black Christmas.
But anyway, I found after it the only reason I like that film. Well, I'll be brutally honest. I don't massively like that film.
No.
The Christmas bit at the end, I find quite heartwarming. The songs I enjoyed. The only reason that I watched it in the first place was my grandfather used to have a record with musical songs on, and one of the songs on it was "Ding Ding Ding Goes a Trolley."
Oh, okay.
Dun, dun, goes
I
a bell.
quite enjoyed that one.
So that's a good song.
Yeah.
That's the best song in it, probably. If not, have yourself a merry little Christmas.
Is that from this?
Yeah.
So I just assumed this was like a song that they threw in there, right? But that's interesting.
Yeah. So that's the origin story.
That's the origins.
That song. But yeah, no, because that's a classic.
Yeah. I think the film lost me sort of halfway through. There was about 40 minutes left, and I was like, I'm ready for it to wrap up now, because it's quite a long film.
Well, it's less than 2 hours.
It felt like a long film.
But it is nearly 2 hours, and it feels it.
Yeah.
You feel like you could lose half an hour of it.
Yeah, it loses pace at a few points.
Yeah. Maybe we should get the producers
of Tiptoes. Yeah, get an edit from them.
You'd just be left with the girl doing all the murderous stuff, probably. I don't think
prefer that.
With an odd song. Well, yeah, it would be more interesting.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it is a good film, and I think it's still a lot of people will get something from it, especially around Christmas.
Yeah.
There's much better musicals.
I'd agree. Should we rate them?
Well, or shall we spoil Black Christmas?
So I say we rate them both, and then we'll spoil Black Christmas.
Good idea.
So do you want to go with St. Louis first?
I will give it a 3 salty popcorn.
3 salty popcorn out of 5. So musicals aren't really normally my taste. I can appreciate some of them, like Singing in the Rain or like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. I think they'd rate higher. With this one, I'd say it's quite a brutal score, but 2 out of 5.
Yeah, I don't think it's brutal if that's how you feel about it.
Yeah.
I'm giving it 3 out of 5 because I like the songs. I like some of the story behind it with Vincent Minnelli and Judy Garland. I think it's quite nice. So I think historically,
yes,
for me, that's why I give it 3. I could be more brutal. I wouldn't want to watch the film again.
Yeah.
I don't mean it. You know, I've seen it. I've seen it enough times in my life. There's lots of films out there. That's me done. Yeah. Meet me in St. Louis. Thank you for being a part of my life. It's time to move on.
You're moving out of St. Louis, moving to New York.
But if the song is played somewhere, I'll sing along.
Yeah. I think I liked the music. I liked some of the characters. It's more just I just sometimes struggle with the pacing of films of that sort of time, I think, is all.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, I haven't mentioned this whole thing that you
Yeah.
said to me about...
So what is that out of 5 out of 10? So 5 out of 10 overall.
5 out of 10 overall. I think you giving it 2 out of 5 is probably not too bad, considering what you told me about films.
Yeah. Do you want to go into that?
You don't want me to say it, do you?
You can if you want.
You know, one of the first things you said to me when you met me, you didn't even say, "Hi, I'm Kyle." You went,
I was like, can you stop breathing down my neck? You're really creepy. Why are you so close to me?
After that,
Yeah.
After that, you said, and I don't like films before 1950.
Did I say it like that?
No, you didn't. You just said...
I said I sometimes struggle with...
You said, I struggle with films that were made before 1950, which I just thought was quite funny because it's like an arbitrary date, really. Like, if you'd have said, I struggle with films before, 1944, it would have made more sense to me in some way. Not that it does make sense, but it would have made slightly more sense because I'd be like, okay, yeah, so maybe that's something to do with the war. Maybe it's something to do with talkies had only been going for a little while. Colour film wasn't so prevalent then.
I think for me, a lot of it comes down more to
lack of
the
sex.
sort of... there's no gratuitous sort of...
Dwarf sex. Turtle sex.
No turtle sex. I think for me, it's more that way of life and the censorship and the sort of innocence of film before maybe the sort of late 60s, 70s, and in a lot of the cases I struggle with.
That kind of 1950s home life.
Yeah.
Because things just changed in the 60s, didn't they? There was a sort of revolution. So I can understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would say that there's definitely films that are made before then that don't have anything to do with, that sort of innocence. I mean, something like On the Waterfront, which at some point we will do, is, is real gritty. Yeah. It's not... innocent.
No.
And obviously there's all the gangster films but I suppose there was a moralistic feel to a lot of films.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going on here, aren't we? So 5 out of
10 sweet and salty score overall. I think that's a good score. I'd say so.
I think that's fair. I think that it is a film for quite a few people to watch at Christmas, but definitely not for everybody.
I think maybe it's the generational difference as well. I've obviously
you saying I'm old again.
Yeah. You're an old bastard. You saw this in cinemas when it came out. I think you were brought up on sort of more musicals, whereas
you were brought up on a diet of musicals and 50s smush.
And I was more
brought up on your auntie telling you horror stories.
Yeah.
No wonder.
Yeah. So let's rate Black Christmas, talking of horror stories.
Okay.
So I'll go first for this one then. I would rate Black Christmas. It's one of my favourite slasher movies. One of my favourite movies, actually. I didn't enjoy it as much as I did previously, to be honest, rewatching it. I don't know if it's just because I knew what was happening. I think there's a few twists in it that
Can I ask?
Got me.
Did you watch Meet Me in St. Louis before it?
I watched Black Christmas last night and Meet Me in St. Louis this morning.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe Meet Me in St. Louis changed you.
No. I'd rate it, I'll give it a 4 out of 5, I'd say.
Okay.
Maybe, no, 3 out of 5. We'll go 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
That seems, I feel bad doing that because I love the film, but...
Clearly not that much.
I'm going to rate it a 4 out of 5, sweet score. I think, for me, a lot of it comes down to it being one of the first of a favourite genre of mine and it doing the genre sort of justice that a lot of films of the early 80s and late 70s in the slasher genre really failed to do. I'll go more into why I like it and how it does that better in the spoilery section. I'll look into it in a bit of a Freudian sense because I like Freud. But yeah, I'd say 4 out of 5, sweet score. What would you rate it for the salty?
I would rate it 3 out of 5. I felt that it is clearly massively influential.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have Scream without that film.
No.
In fact, I felt almost like Scream leaned more on that film than the other films that came after it, which at the time I thought it was parodying.
Yeah.
So I guess that Christmas influenced those films.
Yeah, I suppose in a way. I think Scream's based on the same sort of story of the killer on the phone being within the house as well.
Yeah,
so it probably did take influence
So,
from this film.
I felt that it was very atmospheric. I'll tell you what it felt like, and it might not be, but it felt like a very good first film. And I don't mean that in a demeaning way. I think maybe it's just of its time. The point of view camera, that feels slightly dated now.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the film. I thought it was a good film. There were some moments that were a bit, which we maybe mention in a minute. There were some moments where I thought were a bit off.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it ended well. Yeah, 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5. So what's that overall? 7 out of 10?
I'm
struggling with maths.
Yeah, that was
big, that.
That was quick.
Can I have a sticker?
You can have a star, you just can't draw it.
Yeah, I can't draw stars, I found out today, whilst marking notes.
Whose notes?
My notes. So, 7 out of 10 for Black Christmas, and what did we do?
5 out of 10 for
5
me.
out of 10 for me in St. Louis.
So, if you're going to watch one of these two films today, Christmas Day, watch Black Christmas.
This is a bit of a bad episode to release on Christmas because neither of them are really Christmas spirity movies, but they're good movies set on Christmas.
I'd say that Meet Me in St. Louis definitely finishes in the Christmas spirit.
Yes.
But Black Christmas is a more enjoyable film for me overall.
So, if you want to hear some spoilers about Black Christmas, stay tuned. If not, we'll see you next week. Maybe. Are we taking a break?
You didn't say fuck off.
Yeah, but I'll give them a chance.
You're trying to swear less.
So let's talk some spoilers.
Right. Turtle rape.
The graphic turtle rape scene. So I found that Jess, who is the final girl, she's your sort of protagonist. She's a bit of a, you presume, innocent who turns out to be pregnant and want an abortion. I thought she was a very good final girl.
What's her accent?
I don't know.
It was a strange accent. I guessed it was probably French, just because...
French-Canadian, maybe?
Yeah.
I didn't notice.
You didn't notice?
I have an accent.
Yeah.
I'm bad at picking up accents unless they're really, insensitive.
And yet you're so good at doing accents.
I'm not. Not on the spot.
That was slightly sarcastic.
Yeah. So her boyfriend, Peter, is a bit of a controlling bastard, isn't he?
Yeah.
He calls her selfish for wanting an abortion and insists on them getting married so he can have a bit more control over her so that they keep the child. He's quite violent as well. He has a freak out.
They set him up as obviously the killer.
Yeah.
He's doing a recital.
Yeah.
And
So he's at music school, isn't he?
When they start to seed the search for the killer, they jump to a scene where he's doing this recital and he's playing it really angry, and he's he's like a kind of mad Mozart playing the piano, and you can see that the people watching him are not that impressed by it, but he's really going for it, but he's getting really angry, and that ends badly.
He smashes the piano to bits.
He's a violent fucker.
Yeah, he is.
One way or another.
We also see the Mona, very violent, obviously killing people. But he has a few freakouts as well, where there's one that's quite terrifying where he's in the attic, where he's been living in the attic of this sorority house.
Yeah.
He has the missing girl up there dead, and also the landlady, Mrs. Mack, dead.
Gets a hook to the...
Yeah, she gets a hook to the dome.
A right hook is not a right hook, it's a real hook.
Yeah, and drawn up, sort of hung from her eye. The other girl gets suffocated with a plastic bag.
Yeah.
Both the women actually die because of their looking for the cat, which is interesting.
So that's one of the things that the films have in common.
The cats and murder
Cats
surrounding
and murder.
the cats.
It's interesting, isn't it, that we plucked these films out of nowhere just to say a little bit about ourselves as film lovers, and both of them involve cats and murderous
threats of murder
and murderous threat. Yeah.
So all the men in the film I put down, other than the Mona, are quite prudish. And I feel that he's like a Freudian representation of their repressed sexual frustrations. I think it's an interesting way of looking at it because he's never really shown. He's always within the shadows. You see his face briefly, you assume it's the boyfriend, and then it turns out not to be after Jess kills him and he's still within the house in the loft at the end of the film. Yeah,
so let's go back. You're saying that he is a representation of their repressed sexuality?
Yeah, so I think he's like a representation of all the males' repressed sexual deviancy because they're also prude.
Okay.
And it's almost like this subconscious urge to have sex and be deviant that they don't allow themselves to do. Whereas the women are very sexually free and open and talk about turtle sex.
Yeah. I wonder what Freud would say about you.
I think he'd love me.
I think that's so you think it's about your repressed sexual deviancy?
Not mine, but just male.
Sorry, I was just reading into that in a Freudian way.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah, because you have the
so
moaner
you
on
agree,
the phone.
yeah.
Oh God, you have the moaner on the phone. There's some quite explicit points where
What did you expect was going to come from this by you saying this to me? What did you expect? How did you think I was going to react?
thought
Did you
you
think I
were
was going
going-
to go? Well, that's
It's very smart, Kyle.
That's very clever. Did you not think that I was going to, highlight?
No,
that
I thought you'd
clearly...
be a grown-up about it.
Oh, fuck off!
So the moaner on the initial sort of calls and following up, he's talking to the women of the sorority, telling them, he's like, this is quite a good impression. You love my cock. He's saying things like this, and he repeatedly says,
and all of that stuff.
I'll lick your, when it can't say the word.
Yeah.
And he keeps mentioning their pretty pink cats, and it's really quite unsettling and disgusting to listen to, especially when compared to how prude all the men are. So I view it as these are the like subconscious thoughts of the prudish men that are very reserved with their sexual feelings. It's almost like an outburst of that energy because they're repressing it.
Do you think that because the first one who dies, she's fairly prudish. She seems more prudish, and obviously the landlady is not necessarily prudish, but she's a drunk, which suggests she could be repressed. Do you think that search for their cats?
Yes.
Now I'm getting
interesting.
On the wavelength.
You're on
now
it.
I'm on the wavelength. Yeah.
Is them searching for their sexual freedom? Because of the landlady at one point is gifted a dress because of it's Christmas, and she's like, I have no use for this. No man's gonna look at me. So
then she goes looking
you have a point. She goes looking for the cat,
and it doesn't end well.
And she's threatening to beat the cat up because it's doing her head in.
Of course, the moral of that would be that they would have been better off staying repressed. So maybe the killer doesn't like the fact that they're repressed, because when he's on the phone talking to Margot Kidder, he says, "I'm going to kill you."
Yeah, he
right
does.
from the off. And I thought, well, she's the next target, but
and
she was way down the line.
He says this because she toys with him and calls him like you're a freak, you're a pervert, and she actually stands up to him where the others just stand and sort of listen and take the abuse. She stands up for herself, and he does quite clearly say, "I'm going to kill you," and he does, sadly.
Eventually.
Yeah.
But he kills a few others first.
Yeah, he does. I think the deaths in it are the way they're edited feel quite art house to me. Like the death of Margot Kidder's character is done with like sort of like a crystal icicle sort of thing. And it's all done in like flashes and slow motion and the reflection of crystal glass and
the blood splattering on the camera.
Slow-mo.
And obviously the hook, you don't see it.
No.
It's a good way to make a cheap horror film.
The only other thing I had to say was the carol singing children that come to the door was shite.
They were
terrible.
I was literally just looking at those in my notes. Creepy carol singers is what I wrote.
They were terrible?
I thought they were creepy.
Did you?
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. Some of the things that were off with the film, that was one of them. Because at that time, there's a 13-year-old girl that's been killed.
Yes, so alongside the sorority sister that's missing, there's also a missing 13-year-old that went missing the next sort of morning.
They find the body, and then not long after, the carol singers are singing at the door. And it's like, well, they're all worrying about, oh, God, this is horrible. What's happened?
Yeah, don't let your children out at night.
And then
there's a big group of children.
Carol singing. And then after that, you get this moment at the door when the watch party, the search party, are out looking, and they scare the sorority girls. And then the sorority girls open the door.
Yeah.
And there's this weird comedy scene
where they just won't let them go and close the door.Ey're like, "Oh, we're here. We're looking for the killer. Don't worry, girls. You're safe. Stay inside. Lock all your doors. You're safe now. There's a lot of us out," and they just like piss off.
But they're laughing as well. But they laugh about it as well, and that's the thing that felt off to me. Is like they were like, ooh, "This is funny, weird, funny thing that's happening." I'm like, well, no, this is a little bit like when we watched There's Something in the Barn and the way the family react to the Norwegian cop being killed.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels a bit of out of place.
It didn't feel very believable. So there was a couple of moments like that jolted me out of the film that could have been resolved in an edit, really.
And then after that, the last sorority sister, apart from Jess, the main character, goes upstairs, finds Margot's Margot's body, ends up getting killed herself, and then Jess gets a phone call from the Mona, and there's this reveal that, what's it called when you like wire the phone up? They've tapped the phone, the police have, and they track it in, and it's from within the house upstairs. There's a sergeant told to tell her to get out of the house and not to tell her someone's in the house, and he's this sort of useless buffoon, and he's like, you need to get out of the house, so there are people in there. And she's like, yeah, my roommates are upstairs asleep. And he's like, okay, just get out of the house. And she's like, should I get them? He's like, no, don't go upstairs, don't go upstairs. And she's like, why? My friends are up there. And he's like, do not go upstairs, there's someone up there, there's someone in the house with you. And then she has this moment where she's like, do I leave my friends? Do I check on them? She's quite desperately shouting for them. And she ends up going up and checking, finding them all dead. And then you have this standoff between her and the Mona. She locks herself in the basement. Her boyfriend shows up. You assume him to be the Mona.
Yeah.
She batters him around the head. He dies. And then the film sort of pulls out her in bed recovering from the fight, and you seeing the Mona within the loft still after she's killed her boyfriend.
It was a good end. It was a good ending. I thought it was good. From the phone call, in fact, I thought it went very well.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the end. I thought it was a good...
I think that was the standout part when I saw the film for the first time, just that ending and
definitely
knowing that she's now in this house alone with the killer upstairs. But yeah, that I think wraps it up.
That wraps it up. So there's millions of Christmas films out there. What we've realised over the last 3 weeks of our Christmas journey is there's a few good ones out there and quite a lot of shit ones. Not that we've watched all the shit ones, but you know what we're talking about. You know we're talking about the Hallmark films. You know we're talking about these ones that are made to make money at Christmas. Now, I understand it's Christmas and people just want to watch something romantic and this and that, but there is good romantic films out there. There's good action Christmas films out there. There's good animated Christmas films out there. Watch good films.
Yeah.
Look around. Don't fall for this Christmas crap, because the more and more times that you watch these films,
the more get made.
The more that get made, the more that we're going to come back every year telling you you're fuckers.
You're ruining cinema for us.
I can't use the C word on Christmas Day.
Christmas? Everyone's listening with their families, grandparents there, sat around the fire. You can't blast out the C word at all.
Yeah, no. All that leaves us to say is have a Merry Christmas and have a great New Year.
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Goodbye.
Toodaloo.